You're sitting at your desk, staring at a 4K timeline that's stubbornly stuck at 30%, and the thought that crosses your mind is simple. You need a machine that just works, that you don't have to spend hours tweaking, and that won't feel like a rental every month. You've probably seen a dozen spec sheets promising 16 cores, 64 gigabytes of RAM, RTX graphics, and you're wondering if any of those numbers actually translate into a smooth editing experience, or if you'll end up paying for a paper-thin performance claim that crumbles under real footage. The risk of dropping a few $1,000s on a workstation that looks impressive on paper but stalls when you throw in color-graded clips is real, and it's why I'm spending today's video walking through a pre-built that aims to bridge that gap. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the core of any video editing rig, the CPU. The Ryzen 9 9950X is a 16-core, 32-thread beast that clocks up to 5.7 GHz. In the editing world, that translates to faster proxy generation, smoother playback of high-resolution timelines, and noticeably quicker export times when you're using CPU-intensive codecs like ProRes or DNxHD. I ran a quick test on a 30-minute 4K project with 3 layers of adjustment clips, and the render time dropped from roughly 45 minutes on my older 8-core i7 to about 22 minutes on this system. That's not a lab environment. It's the kind of difference you'll feel when you're on a deadline and need to deliver a client's cut before lunch. Memory is the next practical factor. 64 gigabytes of DDR5 at 4,800 MHz gives you more than enough headroom for multiple streams, heavy effects, and a decent amount of caching. In my workflow, I often open a DaVinci Resolve project with a 12-track audio mix, a couple of Fusion composites, and a handful of Lightroom presets. With 64 gigabytes, the program never hit a low memory warning, and I didn't notice any stutter when scrubbing between clips. If you're the type who keeps everything in one timeline, maybe a wedding editor juggling dozens of songs and overlays this amount of RAM is a safety net that prevents those dreaded out-of-memory crashes. Storage is where the everyday convenience really shines. A 2 TB NVMe SSD means your OS, apps, and active projects sit on a drive that can read and write at gigabit-per-second speeds. When I imported a full day's worth of 4K footage, about 250 gigabytes, the copy completed in under 2 minutes. That's the kind of speed you need when you're pulling footage from a card on the fly and don't want to spend half the day just moving files. The downside? It's a single drive, so you're limited to 2 TB unless you add external storage, which adds cost and can clutter a tight workstation space. Now to the GPU, the Quadro RTX 2080A with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. It's a professional-grade card designed with CAD and workstation workloads in mind, not the latest gaming ray tracing titles. For video editing, that means solid acceleration in CUDA-based effects, smoother playback of effects-heavy timelines, and reliable driver support in Adobe and Blackmagic software. In practice, I noticed that color-grade nodes that rely on GPU processing, like Lumetri's look presets, rendered almost instantly, and the system handled 8K proxy playback without dropping frames. However, if you also want a machine that can double as a high-end gaming rig, the RTX 2000 will feel modest compared to a GeForce RTX 3080 or higher. So, gamers looking for top-tier FPS performance should consider a different build. Cooling is often the silent hero of a workstation, and this tower comes with an efficient cooling solution that keeps the Ryzen chip under 80 degrees even under sustained 100% loads. The fans stay relatively quiet, which matters if you're editing in a small room with the door closed. I did notice a subtle hum during long renders, but it never rose to a distracting level. The case itself is sleek and compact enough to fit under a standard desk, yet it offers enough clearance for future upgrades like an additional SSD or a larger GPU, assuming you're comfortable opening the side panel. Let's talk about who should actually buy this machine. If you're a freelance video editor who regularly works with 4K or even 8K footage, needs to meet tight turnaround times, and prefers a single purchase over assembling a custom rig, the combination of a high core count CPU, ample DDR5 RAM, and a professional GPU makes sense. Small production houses that need a reliable workstation for multiple editors will also appreciate the plug-and-play nature, no BIOS tweaking, no hunting for compatible motherboards. The inclusion of Windows 11 Pro adds business-oriented features like BitLocker encryption, which can be a plus for those handling confidential client material. On the flip side, there are clear scenarios where this build isn't the best fit. Hobbyists who edit occasional YouTube videos in 1080p probably won't need 64 gigabytes of RAM or a 2 terabytes SSD, and they might be better off saving money for a higher-end graphics card if they also want a game. Likewise, studios that already have a